So next I would like to welcome to the stage, we're going to go through a couple of venture spotlight talks here. And the next one, the next feature of our program is going to be talking about Bitcoin and talking about venture deals in China. I'd like to welcome to the stage Ron Cao, he's the managing partner of Lightspeed China, and Egidio Zarrella, the clients and innovation partner for KPMG. So come on up while I introduce you. Edge is KPMG's Hong Kong-based clients and innovation partner, advising multinational and emerging companies on business and IT strategies throughout the Asia-Pacific region. And Ron is a co-founder and managing partner at Lightspeed China Partners, a China-focused early-stage investor in internet, mobile services, and enterprise technologies. He started the Silicon Valley firm's China operations in 2006. He is the lead venture capital investor in Bitcoin exchange BTC China in Shanghai. So Ron and Edge, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you give Ron a hand? He hasn't started yet, but it's going to be really good. So,
thank you very much.
Ron, I guess just more for if we can set the scene a bit. Tell us a little bit about your history. I mean, you started in Intel, and then you've become now an investor. But why the change? I mean, give a little bit of your background to the group here today.
I was an engineer at Intel, but I wasn't the best engineer. So and
are you a good investor?
Working on that. But I was in the Silicon Valley back in the late '90s. So I think either you're a venture capitalist or you're an entrepreneur. You got to pick one of those. I tried entrepreneurship for 3 months and decided to join one of the VCs I pitched to. So that was a kind of, I guess no shame in that. I guess I'm doing this for a while, but for most of you entrepreneurs, so there's probably some shame. But.
All right. So then you set up, I guess, a co-founder of Lightspeed China. Why set up Lightspeed China? What was the reason you guys went down that path with your co-founder?
Well, I joined Lightspeed, the global platform, in 2006 to open our China office. And we set up Lightspeed China Partners in 2011. So, as you know, venture capital is really not a global business. It's really a local business. So, our partners and myself, we felt that, at some point, we want to have a fund dedicated for China, so we can continue sort of our kind of platform building within the ecosystem.
You've taken some investments. Can you talk a little bit about those for everybody here, about what you've taken as said, look, this is of interest before we get to the interesting one of Bitcoin?
In general?
Yeah, in general, yeah. What is in general?
Well, I mean, I think just to touch on Bitcoins, I think what is exciting today is, technology making a lot of things distributed. Airbnb is actually, we see Airbnb the same investment as Bitcoins, in that once it goes distributed, it doesn't go back. Where internet or mobile can connect dots together directly without going through a central party, and Bitcoin is that technology.
Now you've chosen Bitcoin. Let's get right into it, because I'm really interested in this side, and I think most of the audience. Why did you guys take an interest in Bitcoin in China? Why specifically Bitcoin?
Well, when I first heard about Bitcoins was about, I think, exactly a year ago. I think in March or April last year. And, it's one of those things, you hear about it, you kind of read a little bit, you ask some questions, you're like, wow, this is revolutionary. This could be the next thing. And as VC, you kind of, those things, when you have those feelings, your tentacles go up and you do research. And the more research you do, I felt this could be quite disruptive. So we started to look at opportunities in China who's doing Bitcoins. It's a very small ecosystem. Very soon you find BTC China, the largest exchange in China. And you start talking to them. So one thing led to another. We made the investment over the summer, right when this thing became hot.
So now, you're saying aside, Bitcoin's had some mixed press, okay? So what do you think has been the reasons for that? I mean, it looks like an exciting investment. I want to touch on it. Why Bitcoin? But the mixed press that's been out there on Bitcoin, I mean, what do you think the challenges out there on?
Well, I mean, I think it's going through a natural evolution. There's a lot of information out there. The mainstream press, I think, covers it from a government regulatory angle, which is an important angle, but there's different angles you can look at this from. the pure technology side of it, the application side of it, the current adoption worldwide of this phenomena. So I think most people don't have a complete picture of what's going on.
Because one of them is about, and I think we touched on just earlier, about the security side of Bitcoin. I mean, how do you see that play? Because that's something that the public really plays on. And then I want to lead to another question, which a lot of entrepreneurs here and investors may be interested in. I mean, what about that question on the security side of Bitcoin? Because that's the one that is always focused on by the press.
Yeah, there's a couple of layers of security. One is fundamentally is Bitcoin's safe. And no one can save 100% for sure, but in technology, 4 or 5 years is actually not 4 or 5, 3 years it's a long time. A lot of hackers have been trying to hack it because it's a distributed architecture. It's actually very difficult to hack it. You have to what they call 51% rule. You have to hack 50% of the network to do it, and the network's so huge it wouldn't make any economic sense to hack it. Most of the security issues we hear about are things like Mt. Gox or somebody ran away with a coin. Those are more human-related issues. They're not fundamental to Bitcoin. So those are things that will be solved over time.
And if over time, I mean, the thing I'm sure there's a lot of folks interested in here, do we end up getting rid of the wallet with the Bitcoin? Are we totally going towards virtual money?
Well, the short answer is no. But is there a place for Bitcoins? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So give us some of the advantages why using Bitcoin and not my current wallet, if I can say it that way. Why would I go down this path? Why would I choose Bitcoin as a consumer or a corporate?
Well, I live in Shanghai. I come to Hong Kong. I take my RMB exchange to Hong Kong dollars. I take a taxi. I get change. All that. All that is a lot of hassle, right? The technology exists today, and it will happen. I'm sure. I think within 5 years, where, with my mobile phone, the taxi driver would take 0.05 coins. And I either zap his phone or I send him a text or something. Boom, he's got coins, and so P2P payments, micro payments, mobile payments are, especially cross-border, cross-currency, is ideal for that.
Okay, let me touch on because I've been in China a long time. The Chinese love cash. Is Bitcoin going to be big in China? I mean, that's why I was interested. You took that stake in Bitcoin China. I mean, the exchange in China. Is it going to be big in China?
I think China has, I think by country, probably has the most number of Bitcoin users. And quite, I guess, to our surprise, the Bitcoin pricing was driven mostly by China buyers. Yeah. And over the summer last year, during the fall, BTC China was the largest Bitcoin exchange in the world by volume traded. So
it is on for China then?
It is on for China. Right now, there's limited usage for it. People in China buy it, and we taken surveys. 90% is for speculation. So it's a
speculative currency then.
Yeah, it's a sort of a trading mechanism, and
So I mean, if let's take on practical terms. I mean, what's really hot in China is, we just done a survey that everybody in China is spending online. They're spending via their mobile. The move then has to be then putting Bitcoin as part of that exchange, that payment exchange. Is that what you see as the future of Bitcoin?
Well, I think China is not different than U.S. or any part of the world. It's right now I would characterize the entire ecosystem as for sure infancy, and also it's more of an infrastructure build out kind of phase. It's a couple years ago you have to be just a complete geek to own Bitcoin. Now you kind of be a pseudo geek. For a mass, for your mom to use it, it has to be more user friendly.
I mean, there was one thing that's always exciting for entrepreneurs and even investors at the early stage, is that, as you said, you've got to build out infrastructure, you've got to build out the platform itself. For guys here, I mean, how would they be able, if they wanted to be able to play in this game? Because this is 5-10 years out. So what's the sort of game do you think for entrepreneurs and even investors to jump onto this future way of virtual money?
Well, I mean, I've been telling people, if you're going to do a startup, do it and start Bitcoins. This is the next new thing.
Did you hear that, everybody? Bitcoin, everybody invest.
Yeah. So it's, right now we have, based on my estimate, I think it's around 1 to 2 million worldwide users of coins who actually have a coin or so. That number, according to people within the industry, certainly a lot of factors goes into it, whether it's government regulation, et cetera. It will probably hit somewhere in the 10 to 20 million next year.
It's a vast increase.
Yeah, and it will probably be a 50 million definitely within 3 years. There's a lot of factors, and government being a key factor in this. So I think right now, it's relatively easy to get into the industry because, I have friends who actually loved it, and they attended some of the big conferences in Bitcoin and meet all the big players. All the, you wouldn't know who they are, but in the Bitcoin industry, they are the leaders. You can have personal meetings with these people. And find out what they're doing, and join some of these startups or pick up some ideas. I'm pretty sure in a couple of years from now, you wouldn't have access to those people.
Just a question I was thinking of as you was talking about it, going to 50 million. I mean, that's a large number. It doesn't sound a lot, but it is a big number. It's starting to get into this platform. What about the financial institution banks? Do they need to worry about? They're going to come into the game too as well. What do you see?
This is where technology always has advantages in that it's always ahead of regulation.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier, in my view, I think U.S. is probably going to be, in some form or certain states will legalize it, have some sort of formal legalization. So once that hits, once certain institutions start, investing or buying coins or trading, this will be kind of ready for showtime. So banks would probably be after that. The Chinese government has instructed the banks not to touch it. At the moment, in last year, on December 5th. In some ways, the internet companies doing it are giving a head start, to figure this out.
So to get it to more than to, I guess, like you said, the government is held back. Do you feel it's because they're not sure about it yet, or is it more they're allowing the platform to develop first and see where it ends up? I mean, what's your feeling?
Well, in China, a little more closer to it, I think, in China, the reaction from the government came after the price went up 3 times, and you hear stories of people buying and losing money and all that. So, government came out and made a few things clear. Banks don't touch it. Payment companies don't touch it. In some ways, letting this Bitcoin ecosystem develop within itself without touching the real world. Right, so in some ways, you're precluding from the masses being, potentially hurt by the volatility, et cetera.
No, we're almost short of time. But if you say the next 2 to 3 out for the audience here, how do you see? Where would you think? I know you're saying that maybe 50 million in maybe 2 years' time of users. So or maybe a bit more, 3 years. But what do you see? What are the 4 or 5 big things that you see in the next 2 to 3 years actually happening with Bitcoin?
Well, I think there's going to be an easier way to own it. Right now, it's not very easy. You got to have some password. If you lose the password, you lose the coin forever. These are very scary thoughts. So more people will own it. You'll have it probably in a more mobile environment, so you can send it, transfer it. There's probably going to be perhaps some derivative products out of it, because the volatility. It's actually very good for trading. There's some. There might be some cross-border kind of money transfer kind of players that can potentially disrupt Western Union. Western Union. There'll be in the U.S. a lot of e-commerce companies take it as a form of payment already. Yeah. So in China, it's hard to say because I think for P2P payments, probably, some restaurants are taken offline. So there'll be more and more payments. On this.
On this note, folks, I know we only got 15 minutes, but over to you, Rebecca, but can you give him a hand? I think he's actually described a whole brand new industry you can invest in. Exactly. So thanks, Ron. Thanks, man.
How many Bitcoin users do we have here in the audience?
We've got questions in
the
audience.
Show of hands. Any Bitcoin users? Just show of hands. Anybody?
Show of hands of Bitcoin users.
Okay, a few. All right. I understand there's an ATM machine here in Hong Kong. As well. So yes, let's give Ron and Edge a round of applause. Excellent job. And showcasing what's happening here in finance innovation. Thank you. So next, moving into our next spotlight, which is going to showcase what's happening in technology and hardware innovation. I'd like to welcome to the stage the founder of Makerbot, the co-founder of Makerbot, Zach Smith, and also Benjamin Joffe. Benjamin Joffe and Zach, please come up. Zach Smith is a co-founder of Makerbot, which was founded in Brooklyn, New York, to produce 3D printers. The company was acquired in 2013 in a stock deal worth $403 million. Zach today is spending a lot of time in Shenzhen working on hardware projects. So I'd love to hear more about what he's doing now in what he calls Maker Paradise. In interviewing Zach is Benjamin Joffe, who's no stranger to Silicon Dragon. He is a startup advisor and startup evangelist. He's worked with a number of Chinese tech startups. So Benjamin and Zach, take it away.
Thanks, Rebecca. So there was a quick question about who has Bitcoin. So let's try with 3D printers. So who has a 3D printer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think we're huge potential market still. All right. So Dak, thanks for coming over. So I understand you spend a lot of time in South China.
Yeah, so I've been living in Shenzhen since about April 2011. So actually 3 years now. Originally came out to Shenzhen as part of Makerbot to set up our manufacturing chain. Ended up leaving that company, but I had fallen in love with Shenzhen primarily because as a hardware tinkerer, maker, hacker, engineer kind of person, it is pretty much the best place in the world that I've found for building stuff.
Okay. So how much of your time do you spend these days in Shenzhen or South China?
Yeah, I spend about half of my time between the US and China.
Okay. So the company Makerbot got acquired in August last year. So your life probably changed quite a bit since then. You're more of an engineer and a maker at heart, right? So this is the reason you spend time here. What have you seen that you found particularly interesting? So the image of South China manufacturing is generally either super high-end, like Apple stuff, brushed aluminum, Gorilla Glass, or the super cheap commodity type of things. Do you see things in the middle? Do you see opportunities for startups?
Well, it's definitely the place to be if you want to make hardware. There's no other place in the world with the same concentration of manufacturers, of supply chains, of logistic companies, of the raw talent that you need to design and produce a product. So certainly one of the reasons I love being out there is things like Hackcelerator, being the startup incubator out in Shenzhen, and just the pure number of people that come through to build stuff. Like one of the things I like about Shenzhen is that because it's kind of it's an expensive plane flight and it's kind of far away from the States, there's sort of this barrier to get there. And so the kind of startups that you have and like the people that come over to Shenzhen to build stuff, they're serious. They're not the kind of weekend warriors startup people. They're people that are willing to, quit their jobs, go all in, and really go for it. And so the kind of people you find in Shenzhen are just really, they're nuts for it. And it's my kind of person.
It's interesting you mentioned, of course, like it's a long flight to like the US in particular. But in terms of costs, if you look at the cost of a plane ticket, it's about the cost of like one engineering day for development. So I think a lot of, both of us are involved with Hackcelerator, who's going to speak later, which is a startup accelerator focused on hardware. And what we see is all this number of international startups coming over here, right even before they go into production to actually set up everything when the product is not even ready, so that they can iterate on it locally. So is it something that you guys at Makerbot also did? Or were you already like set up and you just shifted manufacturing?
Oh my God, Ben, we made every mistake in the book. I swear to God, like we succeeded in spite of all of that, like not because we did a bunch of things right. We started out in the US building, everything was digitally fabricated and using a laser cutter and ordering stuff through like eBay and all of this stuff. And, we thought we could design our product in the US and then kind of bring it over to China and just kind of turn a switch and then start manufacturing it. But we found out that is completely not the case, especially with a new product that no factories had seen before. Like it didn't fit into any of the nice little categories of, oh, this is like another toy, or this is another like kind of camera or smartphone or something like that. So, you know, and also we were still developing the technology. So it's the kind of thing where if you want to do it in China, you really need to find a partner and work with them instead of coming over and saying, all right, here's the final thing, go make it. And, you know, what we see is with all of these startups on Kickstarter and through Hackcelerator, you know, they're developing a new technology, you know. Nobody wants to fund another copycat kind of thing that just is the same as pre-existing startups. So just kind of by definition, everyone out there is building something new that's never been done before. So
what you're saying is that China has, by combining supply chain and maybe the openness of the factories themselves to new projects, even at early stage, is a better base of operation than the US manufacturing landscape.
yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't have that factory partner to work with and design with, you know, you could just be designing in circles, working on something that's completely unmanufacturable, and all of that time is wasted. And whereas if you go in and you have a partner and you can sit down with them and say, okay, here's what we want to do, you know, they can point out any sort of major red flags in a simple 10-minute meeting and save you tens or hundreds of hours of work and equivalent dollars.
Okay. There's two topics I'd like to touch upon. So one is, so based on your experience with Makerbot, where you see 3D printing going, first kind of your assessment where it's at and where it's going, and later what you see happening in terms of innovation, whether using China for manufacturing, like high-end things, and innovating with China, and also the possibility for Chinese companies to expand internationally, maybe even startup companies. So let's start with the 3D printing.
Okay, sure. So from where I'm sitting here, it looks like 3D printing is kind of diverging into three major markets. So the high-end stuff, there's 3D Systems and Stratasys. Their bread and butter is still making like large, expensive machines that are the realm of institutions. Makerbot has very clearly proved that there's a market for kind of this prosumer $1,000 to $3,000 machine that's capable, reliable, and can make big stuff. And you know, there's been just dozens of companies on Kickstarter that have really shown that there's a demand and a need for just rock bottom, low cost 3D printers. So you know, you kind of have the basic, the pro, and then the just high-end machines. But you know, that's just kind of where things are today. So I really think that there's still a ton of room in 3D printing, and kind of more in you know, for me, 3D printing was never really about one particular technology. It was about this idea and this vision that the automation of making things is huge. You know, it does to physical objects what software and the internet did for information and data. It makes it into this virtual thing that you can apply all of these amazing internet technologies to, and transfer files and make parametric things and mass customizations and you know, run lights out 24/7 facilities that need no human intervention. And so you know, there's a ton of areas where 3D printing is just barely even touched. Like I saw an article today about people 3D printing houses, and it was really cool, but it's super primitive. You know, nobody's 3D printing large buildings yet. And it's one of those areas where if someone really figures that out and figures out how to build something like this or a giant skyscraper with just, you know, a small team and something that can run 24/7, oh man, it's going to change the world.
So there's what you're saying is that there's margin at the bottom with like low grade, maybe consumer level 3D printers. So just recently on Kickstarter, a project just passed $2 million. With the printers like
in like a day or
$200-300.
two. Yeah.
So it's so that's one thing, and then the other one is, I'd say, high-end quality mixed material 3D printing, maybe larger objects, and also there's a problem of speed. So I heard that many people who buy 3D printers end up being somewhat disappointed because it's so slow printing, especially like with a molten plastic type, that they cannot really like make variations of things or make series of things so easily.
Another thing that I think is going to happen is there's 3D printing is a fairly old industry. It really came about in the 70s, and so a ton of the key patents are expiring, and what that's going to do is really drive down the price of the materials, the machines, and so I think the speed problem is going to be solved by parallelism. So you'll the
printing farms.
printing farms where you have many machines running in parallel printing things out, and it's not really been embraced as a larger scale manufacturing technology because of the cost of building one of those, because of the cost of the materials. And so if those come down, then it definitely becomes viable to use it as a printing technology. And if you look at the really low end 3D printer market, there's definitely players out there who are using their own printers to print more of their own printers. And I think I saw a video of a guy that just they have a warehouse and they have like a few hundred machines printing them out, and so they're very self-reliant in that way.
I guess for consumers on the patents you mentioned are really important, like the patents for 3D printers, and I read recently like some patents for Lego also like came into public domain. So now you can print with quality printers your own Lego. So that kind of opens new possibilities also. I'd like to talk a bit, since I think we're short on time, about what you've seen in terms of Chinese companies creating interesting products and innovating and trying to go overseas. So we find very often that international companies are trying to leverage the Chinese manufacturing capabilities, but how about Chinese companies?
Yeah, so one of the things you see a lot, Kickstarter's been extremely popular the past few years, and so there's this kind of death by delays and this death by success, where you raise 500,000 to a few $1 million on Kickstarter, and oh crap, now we have to deliver, and we thought it was going to take a few months, and then you realize, oh my God, you have to learn this whole ecosystem, you have to make partnerships, you have to get this thing designed for manufacture, and so most Kickstarter projects end up being delayed. Whereas,
when they ship.
Yeah, when they ship. So, and a lot of those are the U.S. companies that have to kind of come over and learn how to kind of work the ecosystem. But what I've seen happening lately are more Chinese companies that are native to Shenzhen or native to places where there's a lot of manufacturing infrastructure. They already have the connections. They already have kind of grown up in this ecosystem, and they know where to go to find the stuff. And there's a ton of engineering backgrounds and engineering degrees.
Do you have a specific example you could give of a interesting Chinese project that went on Kickstarter?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess one of a accelerator company,
Makerbot?
Yeah, Makerbot. They launched on Kickstarter, and I want to say they were shipping within like 3 to 6 months because they really knew how to get the manufacturing done. They didn't have to struggle with that. And there's another company, UFactory. They just launched. They raised like I want to say 250,000, and then I got an update, and their campaign ended like a month and a half ago, and got an update from them today saying, all right, we're ready to ship. What's your address? And so I think they were very successful.
Barely weeks after.
Yeah,
the end of the
yeah,
campaign.
literally, shipping.
How often does that happen?
That's extremely rare. There are still Kickstarters out there that I'm waiting on that are, 6, 9, 12 months after they completed. And
I think we need to wrap up. So maybe just to give some ideas to the audience, because you spend a lot of time now meeting with innovators and makers. What are the 2-3 things you're particularly excited about in hardware?
Well, I love robots and more robots.
More robots? Any particular application of robots?
I think there's room for more diversity in the world of 3D printers. Like most of the low-end machines tend to use one of 2 technologies, and there's a third one out there, the laser sintering, that no one's kind of tried to go after that one. I think autonomous robots in the home and also robot arms are going to be huge, particularly robot arms. Nobody really makes a low-end one that is good enough to use in a business setting. And the next step up are like $25,000, $30,000, $100,000 machines. So I think there's a potential for another Makerbot in that area.
Cool. So maybe you'll make that one.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thanks.
That's a great ending note. Thank you, Benjamin and Zach. Here from Shenzhen. You could go visit them anytime.